Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and start. Jim, you on?
Overview of reporting and analytics features in CA PPM designed to provide teams both out-of-the-box reports and configurable analytics platform. This morning you will see examples of how analytics can provide real-time data into how projects and portfolios are managed. I am Jim Tisch. I work in the Agile Management BU at CA Technologies, and we're very happy to provide this webcast today. Before we start, we just have a few housekeeping items to review. First, please submit questions through the Q&A section of the webcast. We'll take these questions at the end of the presentation, and if we don't get to all of them, we will have them answered by a follow-up email. Number two is, after the webcast, there will be an email sent out to you with a recording of today's webcast, so you'll receive it. Now it's my privilege to introduce our speaker, Jeff Toplicar. Jeff works within our pre-sales organization and has a wealth of information on our CA PPM reporting services and Jaspersoft. This morning, Jeff will be discussing advanced reporting. He'll be leading the webcast and provide a demo. And then again, at the end, we'll moderate questions and take your Q&A. So Jeff, we're excited to hear your presentation today and to see a demo and discuss this important topic. So I'm going to send it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So as he mentioned, I do work for the CA PPM pre-sales team, and I'm going to be walking through some of the different portions of the product today centered around the advanced reporting, starting out with our out-of-the-box content that we have, and then moving into looking at how we can leverage our ad hoc reports to answer business questions. And then finally, we will look at, excuse me one second, we will look at the little technical difficulties here. We will look at the executive dashboards and the executive dashboarding functionality that we have in our advanced reporting software. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And before we move in directly into the demo, I wanted to give a little bit of background about how we came to the solution, Jaspersoft, and really where all that started from. And the answer to that is it started with you, our customers. And so what we do is we're continually looking to receive feedback. We're always reaching out to our customer base to find out how we can improve. And one of the things we were consistently hearing is there's a large disconnect between the report generators in the business and the people who are consuming those reports. And so Jaspersoft is really about helping to remove that disconnect and give the people who are consuming those reports the power that they need to get that data themselves, so they don't have to wait for it. I'm sure we've all had the experience of trying to get some new data from our reporting team, and they're so busy that they can't deliver it for a long time, and maybe sometimes even by the time we get the data, it's actually, we don't even remember what we were asking for in the original purpose. So really putting that ability in the hands of all of your users. And one of the ways we did that is through the introduction, as far as I know, of industry's first data warehouse. Now, in the past, the standardized process was we didn't really get involved in how you set up your reporting. What you got was some standardized content, framework of how your data would be set up, and then we kind of left that out to our customers to move from there. So with the data warehouse, we take that a step further. And one of the ways that that really begins is metrics in the data warehouse have real names that you can understand. So when we're looking for a project field or maybe a portfolio field, instead of being called PRD_15, it'll be called project and portfolio. Now, anybody who's messed with a program like Business Intelligence or Crystal Reports knows that one of the most difficult part about building a report is simply finding the right metric to use. So we think we've addressed that partially with just the data warehouse's naming conventions and how easy it is to navigate. Now, secondly, all the business logic that is done on the back end. Some of your DBAs and your analysts are doing very magical things with SQL. They're combining different metrics from across the business and making them make sense and make business sense to your end users. Now, in the data warehouse with CA PPM, all of this work has been done for you. So you don't have to worry about any kind of SQL coding. This is all done on the fly. You can find a metric and pull it into a report, drag and drop style, and you'll be able to utilize that data immediately. Now, even though we have made it as easy as possible for us to continue with the reporting and for you to build your reports, we still know that reporting can be a little bit of a foreign concept for most folks. So that's why we're happy to announce the Getting Started with Advanced Reporting portal online. And I recommend any of you who are interested in learning more about Jaspersoft or getting more into maybe training other people on Jaspersoft to come check out this information. There's a lot of great courses from TIBCO, who's the parent company of Jaspersoft. We also have our own internal CA education sources, which are free to our customers, as well as a big repository of documents and installation guides. Personally, I believe, regardless of how far along you are in your learning path with Jaspersoft, maybe you're an admin, or maybe you're just trying to pull your first report, you'll find something that is very helpful on that website. So everybody should go check that out when you have any questions. Okay, so now we covered a little bit of that background. I'm going to do a quick overview of what I'll be walking through in the demo today. And that's going to start out with our out-of-the-box reporting. So a lot of you might be familiar with this particular report. It's very popular. I'll be spending a little bit of time with it today, and we'll be focusing on how these reports can help you get going very, very quickly. Now, all of these are out-of-the-box templates to require no work. All you're going to have to do is simply run these reports. And not only run them, you can schedule them and deliver them automatically. And all of these reports have come from feedback we've received from customers over the last 15 years. They keep getting better, and we think that these are something that you'll be able to use right away. Next, I'll move over into the ad hoc reports. And ad hoc reporting is all about using live data in real time to answer business questions. So it gives you the ability to visualize trends with our graphs and charts, maybe drill in and drill out of data, and really be able to manipulate it in the way that you see fit. It's really amazing the type of insight you can pull from an ad hoc report in Data Warehouse. And then finally, we'll look at executive dashboards. And I'll go in depth on this a little bit later, but the most important thing about our dashboards is oftentimes when you're trying to combine different types of reports from different types of areas, like maybe your finance area and your portfolio area, it's very difficult to combine that kind of information. It requires a lot of back-end work, a lot of coding. But with our dashboards, our executive dashboards, there is no coding required at all. This is simply a drag and drop function, and all of that back-end configuring and linking of the data is done automatically for you. Now, we also made these very user-friendly for your executives, very easy to read, very easy to gain information without having to dig. We think that these help put the right information in their hands. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open up the product today, and we'll start out with a discussion on how to use our out-of-the-box content in our schedule and run reporting. So here I have that project storyboard report pulled up. Like I said before, this report is very popular, but I want to make sure if anyone's not using it, that they gave it a chance. I've seen businesses replace all of their other weekly project meetings with this single report. You can bring this in, the project manager can bring this in. It pulls the information directly from the most recent status reports and presents it all right here. So we're not entering any data or not making any kind of changes. This is as the project manager in real time does his job of filling out status reports and making sure that things are updated. We can capture all of that work that he did and bring it here into the project storyboard. Now, you can see we have a wide variety of information taken from our last status report, but on top of that, what this will let me do as a manager, just bring your attention over here to the left, is we have a set of filtering functions. Now, right now, I have one report pulled up, but if I was a project manager and I wanted to filter to myself, I could populate the project manager field, and I could be able to click on myself and filter down only the projects that I'm interested in, just to me. But in this function, I'm thinking of more of I'm a manager of project managers, and so I'm looking at reports and only the ones that I care about. So for example, I want to go to a business meeting later this afternoon, and I have 3 projects that I'm concerned about. Let me show you how easy it would be to get all of that information pulled down. Simply select the additional reports, hit apply here, and now suddenly I'm going to have all 3 project status dashboards all ready for me to immediately go and bring to my next business meeting. So you can see we now have the CRM enhancements project storyboard ready, and I can move through these quickly just to show you we pulled down all of this new information, and it was done very quickly. Now from here, I have the ability to export it. There's a large variety of exporting formats. Just go through these really quick. We can move it into Excel, a CSV file if we're pulling large tables, even a Word document, etc., a PowerPoint, a PDF. Now, we can export it this way, but there's also the additional feature here where we can schedule these reports to run at a later date. So let me show you how that would work. So here I am in our list of all of our out-of-the-box content. These are all things that you can leverage right away, but I'm going to keep focused on the same report that we were looking at previously. So here we have the project storyboard, and if I right-click on here and I go down into schedule this report, I'll be able to schedule a run cycle as well as the recipients of this report and how I would like to send it out. So oftentimes what I'm doing is I'm pulling, I'm sending this to a group of managers. I'd like to send them, each a PDF file, and something cool that you can do in CA PPM is we can actually embed the report directly into the body of an email, which is great for mobile. So if you have an executive, imagine a scenario where an executive is traveling and they don't have time to be clicking in and opening attachments, that report can be embedded directly in the body of an email as an HTML file. Another thing that makes this really powerful is our ability to send emails with reports directly to people who may even be outside of the system and not have access to CA PPM. So maybe if you have a contractor who's interested in looking on a project status, we can automatically have that set up to get him the information he needs, even though he doesn't have a license. Okay, so now I've gone over how we can leverage our out-of-the-box content and our schedule and run reports, but now I'm going to dive into what I think is the fun part, which is our ad hoc functionality. A lot of people are a little bit intimidated by ad hoc reports. I think it's mostly because I don't know if people have really gotten in here and dove in, but it is incredibly easy to use, and I hope I can show today how easily and how quickly you can build these and really start gaining some interesting information. So just to pause for a second, this is a financial plan versus forecast cost by period report. This is another one that if you're not using it currently, I highly recommend you give it a look. This is an out-of-the-box ad hoc report that lets you drill up and down through time periods all of your different types of costs. It's incredibly a powerful report. So let me just show you a couple things we can do with this. So here right now, I'll start over here on the right side of the screen. We're looking at the current fiscal year. I'm looking at my investment type is just projects right now. I'm currently have it filtered to my business technologies business unit, and we're going to look at a split between capital and operating costs. Now, I also have some other filters down here where I can pick individual investments, but I'm going to keep it at the overall business unit level for now. So I'm going to go ahead and start expanding and showing how much data we can actually expose through this one out-of-the-box report. So here would be a good view if we were looking at, this is like a business unit scorecard or overall business unit status, but I can drill in to year. We can expose a little bit more information about quarter. Because we do have fiscal quarter also pulled. You can see we have it here in our column section. So now now we can begin to break it out with quarterly data. Now right now I have plan cost to our forecast cost and the variance of these. Once again, these are all out-of-the-box metrics that come with the system. Very, very helpful. It's almost like we have a drillable cost plan here. Now, I'd like to take this a little bit further, and I'd like to say, okay, so we know what our capital versus operating expenses look like now. Let's start to break that out a little bit further and get some detail behind what types of spend within those categories we have. So I'm going to expand out this plan cost type. So now we've broken out our costs into all the different transaction classes that we've defined in our cost plans on our investments. Anything that you use to break out your costs will be available here to use. I've used a couple of these here on my investments in my current demo set, so we can see things like our internal labor, hardware, internal labor, license costs. But if you're using different ways to break out your transaction class, those will be available in this area as well. And of course, we have our capital. We're concerned about how much is this coming from our business and how much is coming externally. Now, one other thing I want to point out really quickly, if people are wondering, okay, this is great, but what if I want to look at a different business unit? Let me show you how easy it is to change that. So for here on our business technology group, if I want to check out how IT is doing on these same metrics, when I update this filter and I apply it, will now be updated all of this information just for my IT business unit. And once again, I can export this, put this in Excel. I know people who love pivot tables would love this, and we can get this data in any slice of it that we'd want to share with other people in the business. Okay, so we looked a little bit into how projects work. We saw a little bit of financial data. So now I think let's look at how we can leverage ad hoc reports to look at some resources. And we'll build a resource ad hoc from scratch. So let me tell you how I got to this point. So when you go to originally build an ad hoc report, the first thing you do is you will select what domain you would like to use. Now I've selected the resource management domain, conveniently named. Like we were talking about earlier, very easy to navigate. If you want resource data, the resource management domain is where you go. And it pulled in the available metrics that I have inside my resource management domain. Now, I'm not using any custom fields right now. This is all out-of-the-box content, so you can see what we have available here. But I'm going to go ahead and begin to build a report. Let's imagine a scenario where perhaps, we're having some problems with our resources being overworked. And we would like to see, we noticed that this just started happening recently, and we'd like to try to figure out and visualize when that started impacting us and how severe is the impact. And I want to be able to drill into the data and look all the way down to the individual resource level and as well as at the macro level. So when I start building it, first thing I'll do here is begin to grab our different dimensions. So I'll grab quarter, we can grab month end date, and we'll also use primary role to start with. I want you guys to notice that in the actual order that I click on these is the orders that they will appear up top. It's a good little tip to keep in mind when you're building these. I can grab all three of these and I throw them up into our roll column. And then I will grab a couple of measures. And I know we were talking about looking at resources being overworked. So the two available measures that I have here are available hours, or how much time that they have to give to do work, versus allocated hours, which is how much time we think that we're going to need them to do work, or how much time they have been assigned to do work. So let me move that up here into our measures. Let's switch that back. Okay, so now we start to have some data up here, but it's at a very high level. This is looking at it across all business units. We're not filtering it in any way, but we do have these different measures here that we can use to begin to filter. So first, the way we can do that is up here with our filter. So I can move it from quarter to our month-end date to our primary role. And each time I move this, we'll get a different granularity of our data. So let me move it into quarter just to give you an example of how this works in real time. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit more of a picture. This data actually is starting to mean something. And then we get it down to month-end date. We'll really start to get a picture of what this resource, what our resources allocation versus demand is looking like. It looks like we have a big peak in November where we're having way too much work and not enough hours to make up this work. But I'm interested in diving in a little bit more. So let's say for this scenario, I am a particular resource manager named Rosie Miller. So I can select myself and click apply. So now I've filtered this information just to me. And then from here, let's say that Rosie is very concerned about her architects. So I can click into the architect role, and once again, we can begin updating. So now we've filtered it down. The same data now looking at just architects for just me. But we're interested in also looking all the way down to the individual person at this point. So we can start making some more detailed insight into what's going on. So I can grab my actual resource name. I right-click on here, and I'm going to say, let's create a filter based on the resource's name that we have in the system. And that'll appear over here on my filter side. So really quickly, I now have a resource filter, and I can look through my list of available architects that are under Rosie. I happen to know the name, Ms. Valerie, so we'll look for Valerie Childress here, who's my architect who I know we're having some issues with. Just one second. Okay, well, okay, Valerie. So I have no problems with my mouse there. Okay, so now I've selected Valerie and we can filter down to her. So look what we're doing to poor Valerie. This really makes it very obvious where we're at. I can filter this, stick it all the way down to primary role so we can break this out a little bit more. And now we can see we have a really big problem that began to happen in November. And I can push into this data even more if I want it. We can drill in directly into the month of November. I can filter this month. We can see exactly what day that this issue started arising. And I can change the type of graph as well if I'd like to see this in a different way. So let's pick a different chart type, and we can see how that will look with a different graph. So really quickly, I can say, okay, all right, we have a line graph here. Okay, that definitely shows us some good information, but I think an area chart would probably be the best type for here. So let's use the area chart. As you can see, now that makes it really, really easy to see. We actually had Valerie's availability going down, but her workload going up. Now, this is something I've heard. I'm sure a lot of people have experienced personally, unfortunately, but I was able to visualize that and build this report from scratch just there in a few minutes. So I hope Hope you all were able to follow along with me through that one. So now I'm going to take another step forward, and we'll begin looking at our dashboarding functionality. Okay, so this dashboard, we saw earlier, I started out with projects. We saw some financial data, some resource data in our ad hoc report. Now I'd like to show us a little bit of portfolio data and how that would look in our reporting system, this time from a dashboard view. Now, all of us know that our leadership and our executives love dashboards. And the reason they love them is because it gives them all of the information they need in one spot. They're not searching for it. They're not having to dig through any kind of data, different Excel sheets to find what they need. They have it all here. And what we're seeing on the screen is 9 different reports all combined onto one page. Each one of these is actually an individual report. And underneath, in our top 10 projects list here, we can see some of that same information that's being pulled into that project storyboard report that we started out with. Things like the schedule, alignment, risk, and issues that are coming directly from the most recent status reports. Now, as an executive, I still have some controls on what I'm able to see. We wanted to give them the power to filter and sort here, so they can filter and sort by project manager. So if I want to see all projects that roll up to Paul Martin, for instance, I can simply click on Paul, apply, and this whole list will filter down to his top 10 projects. And now another great thing about this particular dashboard, and something I think is incredibly powerful, is you have the ability to link to other reports. This project, these project names here you see in ranked order, these are actually all links to those project storyboard reports that I opened with. So if I clicked on any one of these, if I was interested, maybe I saw something, I was worried about this report because we have a couple of reds here and a couple of yellows. This one looks like it might need some help. I can click into it and investigate it further if I need to. Now, like I mentioned before, executives love easy to read. So if you have someone who's a very visual person and they like to see gauges and badges instead of having to look at numerical data, we also support that in our dashboard functionality. So here's an example of what we can do to help you visualize data and without having to even read from a list of numbers or anything like that. I know a lot of people really love this type of report because I can just at a quick glance, I look at gauges. No one has to explain what the gauges mean. I know what red, yellow, and green is. I know that my schedule for my project portfolio is looking pretty good. We're actually ahead of schedule about 10 days. We're relatively well aligned to the business unit, but maybe we could do some work there. And our risk is just a little bit over where we'd like it to be. So very quickly, I just assess the entire health of my portfolio. Same goes down here for where are our people working. So we can see across our portfolio, where are we focusing our allocation time. So it's like the majority of the time here, we actually have people assigned to work on our major projects, and that makes a lot of sense. And then where are all our actuals coming from? So we must have a really big infrastructure deployment project happening right now that's bringing the majority of our actuals. And then over here on the right, we do have additional information on issues and risks across the entire portfolio. Okay, so I was able to walk through starting out with our out-of-the-box content with our project storyboard and our schedule and run reports, and we saw how we can just put that on the scheduler and utilize that out-of-the-box content to send out the important information to all of our stakeholders without having to actually babysit that at all. It's one click to set and you forget it, and that report will be distributed automatically. Then we saw how we can look at an ad hoc report and drill into information on the fly and help to visualize data and gain insight into our business. And then finally, we looked at our dashboarding functionality and how we can combine reports together to create great views for our executive team. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'll hand this back over to Chris to Jim, and we will start our, let him continue on his presentation, and we'll open up the Q&A section. So, Jim?
Brian, thanks so much. Before we jump into the Q&A, I just want to talk about CA World real quick. There's a slide on that, but let's just go ahead and talk about that. CA World this year is in Las Vegas. It's from November 14th through the 18th, and I hope that everybody on this call can join us there this year. We're offering a wealth of education and learning sessions that are both technical and product-based. For example, we'll have some in-depth sessions on the data warehouse and Jaspersoft Studio and report developer, as well as BI. Additionally, this year we're also offering a CA Agile Academy certifications at CA World. So there's going to be Agile boot camps at the event where you'll be able to get a Scrum Master, Product Owner, or SAFe certified, as well as interactive workshops for Agile integrations. And so we're really excited at what we're doing at CA World this year, from the sessions that are being offered, and as well as what we're doing on the Agile front. So from a question standpoint, Brian, one of the questions that came up is, can I configure who has access to a certain report, or who has certain reports that have privileged access?
Great, that's a really good question. So there's actually 3 different levels of reporting security inside CA Advanced Reporting, and the first one is Advanced Reporting General Access, which is access to the reporting system itself. So only authorized users will have access to PPM reports, and you can limit that to a read-only or read-and-run or an edit, read-and-run. So that's kind of our global first layer of security. Secondly, you can grant access on a per-report basis, and that has the same level of access right as before. So we can grant access to a singular report as a right to read it and update it, and edit, read, and update it. And then finally, we can also have row-level access on a report. So actually within the report itself, you can restrict different types of data. For instance, if you had a project management status report, you would only be able to view data for projects that you have access to in the rest of the system. So great question.
Brian, there's another question about status reports. So this is the question. Is the data in the status report real-time? Then the gentleman stated, I think we work with the data warehouse. So that's the question.
Okay. So the data in the status report is pulled directly from when the last time the project manager updated. So when we're looking at things like those indicator lights that we were seeing, things like our schedule, the overall schedule health, where we're looking at as far as any risks and issues, those things were actually entered in the status report by the project manager himself. But things that were actually numerical data, like the current cost and financial metrics, that is actually live data that is updated when you run the report.
Thanks, Brian. There's another question about integration. So how easy is it to integrate the custom attributes and custom objects in this framework?
So custom attributes are actually incredibly easy to get into the system. So if you have something that you're using in regular PPM that you would like to move over to advanced reporting, it's as simple as checking a box that says add to data warehouse. And then the next data load, those will be available inside the system. So really, it's from the, we have the administrators in here, from the administrator menu, anytime you have a new metric, you simply click the load to warehouse, and that'll pick it right up.
Brian, is it possible to implement a drill down? For example, if you have a project line and can view the tasks. So is that possible?
So yeah, we saw an example of drilling down in that ad hoc report. So like maybe, for instance, if we're looking at that financial report and how I was able to drill in and out, And then on the dashboard, we were able to show how we had the links to the project storyboard on there as well. But if we're talking about one of the schedule and run reports, that wouldn't be available because that data is actually static at that point once you run the report. But for ad hoc reports and dashboards, yes, we can implement drill downs.
There's somebody asking about drillable OBS filtering, and so they're asking is what they're asking is that coming soon?
So drillable OBS filtering. So are we looking, for instance, on that financial report? I think I'm understanding your question right. We were able to. You saw when I added in that filter and we looked at IT versus our business technology group. If I were to grab that same metric that we use, our business unit field, and I added that to our cross tab, that would give us the ability to split out and drill down through the different OBS units. So yes, in a cross tab, you could implement a drillable OBS.
Brian, there's a question about kind of a how-to question, and so how do you grant access to a singular report?
So if you wanted to grant access to a singular report, we go to the actual report itself, the reporting list, and then with a right click on that report itself, you'll be able to see options to grant permissions. You'll see a question called permissions, where you can then select who has the availability to view. And it has that same level of access we were talking about before. You can grant access at the edit, the read, and the edit, read, and run levels of the report.
Another question, Brian, is on documents. And so are there documents or best practices on Jaspersoft?
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. And I mentioned it a little bit before about the getting started with Jaspersoft portal. If you're looking for documents and best practices, that is the absolute best place to go. We've been collecting everything from our customers, everything from our community's website. It's all going into that area. There's a really big focus on that now. So if you're looking at some documents and some training guides, I highly recommend you go on the DocOps and check out our Getting Started with Jaspersoft portal.
So, Brian, also about questions on exporting reports to PowerPoint. And so can you export a report to PowerPoint? Does it paste an image or an actual editable table?
Yes, good question again. So that's going to be a live data. So it would be editable. Now, if you threw that into Excel, it would work just the same way. It's not going to be a static image. This is actually live data that was captured and moved over when you export.
And then one of the final questions that we have right now is about Jaspersoft Studio. What is Jaspersoft Studio, and how is it different from regular Jaspersoft?
Okay, so Jaspersoft Studio is a little bit like, I think of it like Crystal Designer, if any of you are familiar with that. It's kind of the, it's the administrative report engine that works behind the scenes in Jaspersoft. So it requires a developer to run. So that's when you're going to be actually building new customized reporting. It's a pixel perfect report engine, and it's completely feature rich. So you can build every single facet, from the way it's formatted to the way, you know, individual frameworks are working inside the report, all within Jaspersoft Studio. So it's kind of the if you want to get a little bit more into the customization or maybe edit some of those custom templates that we have, that's where you would be doing that, would be in Jaspersoft Studio.
Brian, a question came in for more clarification on the OBS filtering, and so that question was that they want or need to click on a filter project OBS and see a drillable list that one can select OBS branch from to use in the filter before running the report. Does that make sense? Okay,
so I think that particular question, why don't I go ahead and engage that one offline. I'm not 100% sure what they're asking me in for that question. So can we? I'll reach out to that question individually later, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great, because that person also had another question, and so if we could reach out to him personally, that'd be great, and we will do that. So
perfect.
Questions. So those are all the questions we have at the moment, and so I want to thank everybody for being on this call today, and I want to thank Brian for his time and presenting the PowerPoint, and also for providing the great demo. And again, I want to invite everybody to CA World, because we have some fantastic sessions on reporting in BI and reporting, and so please attend. And then the last is, if you don't mind, we have a poll question. If you could take a moment and rate the value of today's webcast and on the topic, that would be fantastic. We review these, and it helps us get better. So again, thank you very much. And Brian, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.